Most men do not fail because they are weak. They fail because they refuse to adapt. They cling to loyalty as though it were law. They trust permanence in a world governed by advantage. They confuse familiarity with allegiance and comfort with security. But power does not reward sentiment. Power rewards those who adjust faster than circumstances change. Understand this early. Loyalty is not a virtue in the marketplace of survival. It is a temporary agreement between interests. The moment interests change, loyalty dissolves. The friend who praises you today calculates your usefulness tomorrow. The ally who stands beside you does so, because for now, your direction serves theirs. Remove the benefit and watch devotion evaporate. Men speak of betrayal as if it were rare. It is not rare. It is inevitable, because most relationships are not built on truth, they are built on convenience. Observe carefully, and you will see that enemies are often more reliable than friends. An enemy declares opposition openly. An enemy reveals intention through resistance. An enemy forces clarity. A friend, however, may disguise ambition behind warmth. He may conceal calculation beneath familiarity. And when advantage presents itself, he will act not out of hatred, but out of necessity. This is the order of things. The world is not governed by loyalty. It is governed by self-interest, refined by intelligence. Those who accept this gain freedom. Those who deny it become instruments in the plans of others. Welcome to the 1%. Here illusions are removed, not preserved. Human behavior is examined without sentiment. Power is studied without apology. You will learn to recognize the difference between words and incentives, to see attachment as leverage, to identify when cooperation serves you and when independence protects you. You will understand how adaptation converts weakness into position, how disadvantage becomes influence when observed without emotion, how patience defeats force when strategy replaces impulse. The masses seek reassurance. We seek advantage. They want comfort. We require clarity. They hope loyalty will protect them. We design structures that do not depend on it, because those who operate above the crowd do not expect stability from human nature. They prepare for its variability. If you remain rigid, you will be broken. If you adapt, you will shape outcomes, and what follows will disturb those who still believe trust is protection, because the truth reveals something far more useful than trust ever could. Men speak of loyalty as though it were carved into stone. It is not. Loyalty is written in sand, preserved only while the wind is still. Observe those closest to you, and notice how their support fluctuates with circumstance. When your position strengthens, they stand nearer. When your position weakens, they become silent observers. This is not cruelty. This is calculation. Friends rarely betray because they are evil. They betray because opportunity rearranges their priorities. Convenience is the architect of most loyalty. Remove comfort, introduce pressure, introduce comparison, introduce advantage, and watch devotion reorganize itself. Envy erodes loyalty faster than conflict ever could. When your progress begins to reflect their stagnation, admiration becomes discomfort, discomfort becomes quiet distance, and distance becomes justification. Few people abandon loyalty openly. They dilute it gradually until their absence appears reasonable. Yet the enemy remains consistent. The enemy does not disguise intention. The enemy declares opposition through action, not reassurance. You know where he stands. There is clarity in opposition, and there is danger in false alliance. Most men fear enemies while trusting friends, but the strategic mind reverses this error. An enemy reveals the direction of resistance, while a friend conceals the direction of ambition. One sharpens your awareness, the other dulls it. Ask yourself, who benefits from your trust, who adjusts their behavior when your circumstances change, and who celebrates your progress without recalculating their position. You will find fewer answers than expected, because loyalty is rarely tested during comfort. It is tested when advantage shifts, and advantage always shifts. Human beings are not driven by loyalty, they are driven by self-preservation disguised as loyalty. A man will speak of principles until principles threaten his position. Then he speaks of necessity. Self-interest is the most reliable force in human behavior. It does not sleep, it does not negotiate, and it does not disappear. It adapts. Emotional loyalty is unstable because emotion is unstable. Affection weakens under comparison, commitment weakens under opportunity, and promises weaken under pressure. Opposition, however, is efficient. Opposition has clarity of purpose. Your rival does not need to pretend neutrality or protect your comfort. His position is defined by resistance. Predictable resistance is easier to manage than unpredictable allegiance. Social structures reward those who understand this. Every circle contains hierarchy, every hierarchy contains competition, and every competition produces concealed tension. Most people participate in these tensions unconsciously and call it friendship. But beneath every alliance exists silent measurement. Who holds influence? Who holds leverage? Who advances first? Who becomes necessary? When necessity changes, relationships reorganize. Adaptation governs survival within these structures. Those who fail to adapt become examples. Those who adapt become architects. Blind trust creates exposure, not because others are malicious, but because interests evolve. If your position depends on another's unchanged loyalty, you have built your foundation on movement, and movement produces instability. The strategic mind observes motives instead of words. Words are instruments of appearance, while motives are instruments of action. A friend's language may promise permanence, but his incentives rarely do. When incentives shift, behavior follows. Enemies, however, offer a different advantage. Opposition reveals patterns, patterns reveal priorities, and priorities reveal vulnerabilities. A declared opponent allows preparation, while a concealed competitor invites surprise. Those who understand power do not seek to eliminate enemies immediately. They study them. An enemy displays discipline through persistence and exposes his methods through repetition. He reveals what he values through what he attacks. Through opposition, he clarifies your own position. A rival often defines your boundaries more effectively than an ally defines your comfort. Control emerges from comprehension, and comprehension emerges from observation without emotional interference. Emotion seeks reassurance, while strategy seeks accuracy. When you remove the need to feel secure, you become capable of seeing clearly. Clarity allows adaptation, and adaptation allows control. Consider two men. The first calls himself your friend. He supports your ambitions publicly and echoes encouragement in moments of visibility. But privately, he measures distance between your progress and his own. He studies your opportunities, studies your access, and studies how your advancement alters his relevance. When an opening appears, an introduction, a partnership, a resource, he does not oppose you. He simply prioritizes himself. He withholds information, delays communication, and reframes narratives. Nothing dramatic, and nothing visible, yet the outcome shifts. You experience confusion, not conflict, because betrayal rarely announces itself. It disguises itself as circumstance. Now consider your declared rival. He questions your decisions openly and challenges your position directly. He attempts to undermine your influence, yet his behavior remains consistent. He signals intention through resistance. You prepare responses, reinforce weaknesses, and anticipate pressure points. Because you expect opposition, you adapt early. Your strategy sharpens, and your structure strengthens. Ironically, the enemy contributes more to your evolution than the friend who concealed competition. The enemy trains your awareness, while the false ally relaxes it. One refines your position, the other exposes it. Dependence on loyalty creates fragility, and fragility invites control from others. Those who rise rarely rely on emotional assurances. They rely on positioning. Positioning reduces reliance on personal sentiment and replaces hope with preparation. Observe those who maintain influence over long periods. They do not assume loyalty. They design systems that function despite disloyalty, diversify alliances, and maintain independence within cooperation. They expect movement within human behavior, because human behavior always moves. Power does not require affection. It requires awareness. When you expect loyalty, you become vulnerable to its absence. When you expect self-interest, you become prepared for adjustment. Adaptation becomes easier when illusion is removed. Those who insist on emotional certainty become predictable, and predictability invites manipulation. The adaptable mind resists manipulation because it resists attachment to expectation. Expectation is a silent contract with disappointment, and the strategic individual signs fewer contracts. Observe behavior under pressure, because pressure exposes priorities. Words seek approval, but actions reveal allegiance. Measure consistency, not intensity, because intense loyalty often masks temporary enthusiasm, while consistent alignment reveals durable interest. Maintain emotional distance within alliances, because distance preserves perception, and attachment distorts evaluation. Study opposition carefully, because opponents provide data without concealment. Map patterns of resistance, because patterns forecast future behavior. Never depend on loyalty where incentives conflict, because incentives determine direction. Design relationships where cooperation benefits both parties, because mutual advantage stabilizes interaction more effectively than emotional attachment. Avoid revealing full reliance on any single connection, because reliance concentrates risk, while distributed dependence reduces vulnerability. Adapt communication based on shifting dynamics, because rigid communication reveals rigidity of thought, while flexibility signals awareness. Do not seek comfort in agreement, because agreement often conceals hesitation. Respect friction, because friction reveals structure. When you detect change in tone, change in availability, or change in enthusiasm, observe quietly. Behavior rarely shifts without reason. Reason reveals intention, and intention reveals trajectory. Adapt before the shift becomes visible to others. Early adjustment creates advantage, while late reaction creates defense. Power favors anticipation, and anticipation requires detachment. Understanding enemies is only the first layer. Most men stop there because they believe identifying opposition provides security. It does not. The most significant threats rarely announce hostility. They appear cooperative, aligned, and beneficial. Yet the highest level of adaptation does not focus on enemies or friends. It focuses on something far more subtle, the silent competition hidden within cooperation itself. Few recognize it. Fewer prepare for it. Those who ignore it often discover its presence only after their position has already shifted. In the next message, we examine the structure beneath alliances, the mechanism through which influence changes hands without visible conflict. Most will reject it, because accepting it requires abandoning the comfort of believing loyalty protects them. When you expect adaptation from others, you are no longer surprised by it. When you anticipate self-interest, you are no longer destabilized by it. When you remove emotional dependence from strategy, you become difficult to manipulate. Most will not apply this understanding, because clarity requires distance. And distance feels unfamiliar to those trained to seek reassurance. But a small number recognize the value of seeing without distortion. They do not gather information for comfort. They gather it for positioning. They do not seek agreement. They seek accuracy. They do not expect loyalty to protect them. They structure their decisions so protection is unnecessary. The 1% is not designed for those seeking affirmation. It is designed for those willing to observe without preference. Access to this perspective is not widely distributed, because most would reject it. If you recognize its usefulness, you already understand why remaining here is a calculated decision. Because the difference between those who are influenced, magish, and those who influence is rarely strength. It is awareness applied without hesitation. Return only if you prefer truth over reassurance, because in the end, it is rarely open enemies who alter your direction, but the quiet adjustments of those you assumed would never need to.